This podcast is brought to you by PwC.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Family Office Insights, our podcast where we share PwC thoughts on various topics of interest. We've already done a couple of podcasts on the new inheritance tax initiative in Switzerland. This is going to be voted on in the coming months, and as a reminder, it proposes a 50% inheritance tax with a one-off 50 million exemption. We've had Jörg and Dieter talk already about some of the details on that. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Alexandra Bertschi, who's our family governance specialist, and we're going to look at some of the more family-based and emotional aspects of the implications of this initiative. So, first of all, Alexandra, thank you for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Can you start by giving us an introduction to the work that you do with families and family offices?
Yes, sure. I'm working with family businesses mainly and family offices on family governance issues. Mostly these topics are related to a succession process, either an ongoing succession process or a succession process that shall be started within the next years. And we ask there several questions or work on several topics with these owner families in which direction they want to bring their family business.
It's such an important topic because there's always the numbers, the tax, but then when it comes to the nuts and bolts, it's the heart and the emotions that really is the important piece. So thank you for joining us. Now, with the inheritance tax initiative, we've done a study recently of over 220 family business owners to see what they're thinking about the initiative. And we know that a lot of them will struggle if this is brought in terms of liquidity, in terms of solutions. Now, Dieter's talked about some of the solutions, but from the perspective of what our study showed us, what are these families thinking?
Well, most of these families are very scared about the initiative because the issue is that most family businesses, they don't have, as you already mentioned, they don't have the assets in a liquid form. So most of the assets are within the business, within the firm. So if this initiative will come, that would mean selling some kind of businesses or moving abroad, which are two options that these family businesses that have been there for many generations. We're working with family business in the 8th, 9th generation, more than 100 years old businesses. They don't want to sell or to go on a different place. Yeah. And this is a very emotional topic for them.
For sure. And so handing to the next generation has to be something on the cards that these family businesses are thinking about. Is that the easy solution?
Yeah, that's potentially an easy solution, but it's just it's a shift of the problem to a next generation, because the next generation then would have to face the same problem, and then they won't have this option. And furthermore, you also have the issue, the succession process itself. It takes time. It's a very emotional process where many questions have to be answered, that needs time, that needs many discussions within the family. And if this process now needs to be hurry up because of this initiative, because of time pressure, that might cause, I would say, not the best solutions in the end for the family and the firm.
Yeah, and so if you have families in that position and they are thinking about passing on their family business, can you talk through what's the general family governance process that you go through when you're looking at something like this?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. We at PwC, we work with the Family Governance House, we call it. It contains of 6 chambers we work through with the families. The first is about membership, so who even belongs to the family? It sounds like a very easy question, but if we talk, for instance, about the role of spouses and whether spouse could gain shares, in the end, it gets always very emotional. Then the second room is about the overall owner strategy, or the self-perception the owning family has with the firm. The third is about the strategy. What do we want to achieve as an owning family? What are our goals?
On that, the strategy as a family in the future, or related to the business as well?
It's both. It's a family in the future. So shall we stay a family firm? Very important topic. Or shall, for instance, also family external people be shareholders? That's a point. Another point is this trade-off between growth, stability, profitability, and paying dividends in the end. Where do we set our prioritizations as a family?
Yeah.
These are questions to be answered there. And you see that, for instance, the topic of dividends. If a family decides, no, we don't pay huge dividends, we keep the money into the firm, we reinvest the money into new businesses, new projects, whatever, then the money in the end is not there to pay any taxes because it's invested into the firm.
Yeah.
And this is typically one big issue for this initiative.
Yeah.
So that's an area where we have very interesting but ongoing long-term discussions. Then the fourth room is about the business governance. So these typical aspects of the owner family being involved as owners, often in the board of, in the strategy board, and often also operative, so in the board of directors.
Yeah.
And how do we manage these, I would say, one-man show in some kind of firms? And then the fifth floor is about family governance. So how, as a family, we deal with our family business. And then in the sixth room, we talk about future roles. And here we often have the surprise that we maybe start a project. Typically, I would say, the father says, my eldest son will take over. And then during all these discussions in the other 5 rooms, we then realize maybe this is not the best option, or maybe this is not the only right option. And a typical other solution may come out. And this makes it difficult if we just have to speed up now this process, which typically takes, I would say, a year and a half, something like that.
Wow, okay.
And if we have to speed up these discussions and make it within a few months, it might come out the standard solution, which might be not the best for the family and the firm in the future.
Yeah, because unlike a number exercise, or if I do X, then I'm here and my tax is Y.
Yes.
You're talking about emotions, and it is a process, and you do have to work through it. So I can see it will take a lot of time.
Yeah, we typically work in daily workshops with these families, and between each workshop we have like a month in between. And in this month, a lot is going on, a lot of emotions. It's I always say it's still working in the brain within this month. And this work, however, is very importantly that it's been done. And this is time that would be stolen if we have to hurry up.
Yeah, I was talking to a client recently, and he's been through this process, and a really smart guy. And he's, I think, the 6th or 7th generation of a family. And they decided to sell the business. And they haven't, but they've been through a big process. And he's not running the business. He's on the board of directors. And he spoke about, as a family, so clearly and in such an articulate way, you could tell that they had been through this process together. And he said, well, for us, the business is the golden goose. So we work together as a family to keep the golden goose safe. The golden goose lays eggs, and each family member gets an egg. Sometimes they don't get an egg because there's not dividend paid out, for example. And what you do with the egg is your business, but we keep the golden goose safe. And he said it's taken years as a family to get to this point. So I can totally see the process works, but if you don't go through it, I imagine it causes all sorts of problems.
Yeah, this is also from an academic perspective very interestingly. I've forgotten to say it in the introduction that I've also been working a lot with family businesses academically in studies, and it's called the socio-emotional wealth concept. This is what you just nicely described, that actually these families, they have a perception about their business which goes much more beyond it's just a business where I gained some money in the end. It's like a very strong identification of the family with the business. This is somehow interrelated and very emotional. The business is the family, and the family is the business. And this is something, and I feel that many families are now also a little bit emotionally hurt by this initiative, because they feel not just the business, but the whole family is affected by this initiative.
Yeah. Interesting times ahead, no doubt. So I think we're nearly at the end of our time. I just have one other question. So taking the initiative to one side for a minute, for any family, whether they're still in the family business or whether they've got their family office and they're in the wealth preservation stage, what's one thing you would suggest that all of these families are thinking about or looking at?
Well, it's important that they have a clear process how they hand over from one generation to the next. Many families I see, they just think, oh, it's clear, it's easy, we just make that at some point. I always say, let the family be advised in this process. Really share your thoughts and wishes with an external advisor, that you can lead this discussion in a structured way, because it's a very emotional discussion. And these emotions are also important to be catched up in these discussions. And therefore it helps if you have like an external coach or mentor or like us as a family governance team to guide these discussions.
Yeah, good advice. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We'll put a link to the study alongside the podcast. And of course, you can reach out to Alexandra if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thanks. Bye.